Hello, hello, just Gem here and welcome, or indeed welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I've kind of got a bit of a two-faced scenario going on. It's because I've just filmed another video, but I thought while I've actually got some decent lighting, I would film about the fact that I'm kind of having palette fatigue, which I never thought would be something that I would suffer from. Normally, so let me rewind. I'll not rewind as such, but in case you're sort of new and you've just stumbled across this video, I'm Gem. I like to put on makeup. Quite often I'd like to do two looks in one video, hence why I've got mismatched eyes at the moment. But the mismatch today is relatively subtle. Sometimes it's more extreme than this. But yeah, I love makeup. I love all kinds of makeup, whether it's high-end, indie, drugstore. When it comes to the indie side of things, I think I'm new to the indie side, but I'm really enjoying the indie brands that I've used recently. And I'm keen to try more. The thing that I'm finding though is, because I own so much already, palettes that are coming out these days are not necessarily inspiring me. And I can tell from looking at them immediately that I've probably got at least half of those colours 2, 3, 4 times over. I kind of mentioned in one of the latest videos that I've done talking about the release between, so the two latest releases, one from Blend Bunny and one from Nomad. The Blend Bunny one made me kind of go, eh. Whereas, and it's really interesting actually because I've watched a few reviews on this, the Nomad Fuji 5 Lakes, I think it's called, a lot of content creators are saying the same thing, and that is that when they opened the palette, one, because of the packaging, and two, because of the colour story, that they actually audibly gasped. When someone first said this, before I'd seen the inside of the palette, I was like, that's a very strong claim to make, until I saw the inside of the palette and I was like, ooh. It's been a very long time since I've looked at a palette and instantly been inspired. Like I look at that and I'm already putting different colour combinations together. Like I'm already, in my mind's eye, I'm creating looks that I want to try. And I'm struggling. I mean, you can do that with other palettes. Like you look at the Blend Bunny palettes, the Blend Bunny palette that's just come out. You can look at it and think in your mind of colours and looks that you can do, but it's nothing new. It's not groundbreaking. And I mean, I'm not saying an eyeshadow palette needs to be groundbreaking, but I feel that originality is rare, and with good reason too. I think it's maybe the palette era is dying, but people aren't as into palettes as they used to be. I still am. I love an eyeshadow palette. I think I'll always love an eyeshadow palette. I think I'm drawn in by the colour and imagining what those colours can then look like on my eyelids. Like even just looking at the two looks that I've created today, especially this kind of fiery look. And I think one of the reasons that I was drawn to, so these are the two palettes that I've got on my eyes at the moment, and I think one reason I was drawn to them is because there was not a pink, blue or green in sight. Having said that, I did want the one that had green in it, but that's an entirely different story. But thinking of the looks that I've done a lot recently, this is very different for me, but it's still colours that I love. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I think blue, purple, green are definitely colours that are quite popular, so palettes are always going to have at least one of those three colours in there, or variations of those colours, you know, teal, pink, you know, gradients of those colours. I mean, there's only so many colours you can do. I remember going through a phase where every single palette that came out, I was like, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. And even a point where I wouldn't say I was buying every palette, but I was probably buying more than is reasonable, really, you know, if we're being honest. And then I feel like I've hit the other end of the spectrum now, where I'm looking at palettes and I'm just kind of like, I'm almost having to talk myself into buying a palette, which, you know, I've created this channel, and I think one of the reasons is because I do want to be able to demonstrate that you don't need to necessarily go out and buy the latest palette. But it's just interesting to me that I've kind of reached a point where I'm looking at makeup, and it's not actually the eyeshadow palettes that are exciting me anymore. It's the blushes, for example. It's the highlighters. I mean, this is probably not the best example, but even though I didn't necessarily love this product at first, it is quite innovative. And a lot of people, I think, complain because they're like, oh, as a highlighter it's rubbish, but it's called a lowlighter, it isn't called a highlighter. I'm also more interested in complexion, for example. Like, I'm exploring more actually using the right shade of foundation for my skin, which is funny because I've actually got 2 different shades on my face at the moment, but I don't know if you can tell that I've got 2 different shades of foundation on my face. But I'm also looking at foundation, not just the shade match, but what suits my skin type. A lot of people will sometimes buy a foundation and wonder why it's not working for them. You know, everyone's raving about this foundation, but everyone who's raving, they've got dry skin, so they've put on this foundation and they love it. But you've put it on with your oily combination skin, and you're thinking to yourself, why doesn't this foundation work for me? I'm not only being mindful about the amount of money I'm spending on makeup, I'm also being mindful that the money I'm spending my makeup on is going towards products that's actually going to work for me. I think originally, maybe it's just a cyclical thing. I know that when I first got into makeup, I was all about the lipsticks. I remember on my original Instagram page, I would post looks constantly, and I wouldn't even necessarily have any other makeup on. It would just be me on my way to work rocking a bright red lipstick. Funnily enough, I've kind of transferred. Every now and again I'll do a bold eye and a bold lip, but now my eyes seem to be where I'll draw the attention to. So I've gone from being lip heavy and being really focused on lip trends and collecting lipsticks to the point where I'm now collecting eyeshadow palettes. But then that's shifting, and I seem to be going more towards the blush side of things. Like, I love blush. Even highlighter. I've been saying lately I'm not a highlighter person, but I'm finding that I'm liking having a glow, and I don't necessarily need that glow from my foundation. In fact, I don't want that glow from my foundation a lot of the time because of my combination skin. So if I'm going to be using a mattifying foundation, the glow that I'm going to get is probably going to end up being from my blush and my highlighter. Despite being someone who necessarily didn't go towards using a highlighter, I find that I'm wanting to use a highlighter more and more. And I guess the point of this, and I'm aware I'm being very, very rambly, is, do you kind of find that you not necessarily get fed up with makeup per se? I think I'll always love makeup. I think the creativity it brings out in me, the enjoyment that I get from putting on makeup and transforming myself in a way. But I wonder if you kind of maybe get fatigue with a particular product. And I think with eyeshadow palettes, that's something that's very, very common because the market is saturated, really. And I think you've got to be able to create something really unique, which is very difficult these days, in order to sell a palette. And it's very interesting to me because Urban Decay have gone in the complete other direction, and in an attempt to almost stay relevant, have re-released a palette that made them popular about a decade ago. I never had that palette, and I have no desire to have that palette. Urban Decay have done some good palettes and some good makeup in general, but I just feel like it's almost a bit of a cash grab to latch on to people's nostalgia by re-releasing that palette. But that's perhaps a conversation for another. So my battery died as I was filming my last video, and rather than wait for my battery to charge up a little bit and finish, because I know I'm going to lose the light, I just thought I'd quickly finish on here. But the purpose of, I guess I'm trying to pose a question to you, and that's, do you ever suffer from specific makeup fatigue? Is there a time, if you follow a lot of the beauty influencers and you follow a lot of like makeup on your radar or trend mood, that kind of thing, if you're scrolling through, do you ever think to yourself, if I see another eyeshadow palette, or God, if I see another blush, or if I see another foundation, is there anything that kind of really frustrates you about makeup and the makeup industry? I understand that this is a very sort of random video, but it just kind of popped into my head, and I thought I'd raise the question and get your views on this oversaturated world that is the makeup industry. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Very random, I know, but it would be interesting if you can comment, let me know what you think and what your relationship with makeup is like. I'm just very curious. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and hopefully I'll see you again in a video in the not too distant future. Take care. Bye.